This is Janine Young of the Smithers Market Reports publishing team. Today we are talking with Howard Colvin, the author of the Smithers Market Report, The Impact of Tire Wear Regulations to 2034. Howard is a tire industry materials expert who has done in-depth research on regulations regarding 6-PPD and other topics. Let's start with the question, why are tire wear regulations so important?
Well, maybe not to state the obvious, but all tires wear, and clearly we try to control the rate of wear. The industry's focused for many years on trying to improve tire wear, but the issue of tire wear particles is something that has not been appreciated until fairly recently. I recall a conversation that I had with a friend of mine who was a manager at a major tire company in the 90s. And he made the comment, he said, nobody really knows what's happened to all the tire wear that clearly the tires are losing their mass, but nobody knows what's happened to it. Well, that statement really wasn't quite true, but in the 90s, people didn't really understand the importance of it. For example, there's about 5.9 million tons per year of tire wear particles that are emitted. And these contain chemicals, many of which are chemicals that people are concerned about, sometimes justifiably so. Perhaps others maybe not so much, but they're also concerned about the transformation products. Once these particles are in the environment, they can be leached by groundwater. They get into the groundwater, they get into rivers, and these materials can not only by themselves, but through the oxidative process, through light, other processes, be transformed into other chemicals. And we really don't even have a handle on that. So controlling, in some sense, of tire wear is very important, I think, to the industry. And I think it's important that the industry takes a very active role in this. If we don't, then there's going to be some poor regulations. We have to have an active part in this.
Well, that kind of leads into my next question. What can readers of this report expect to learn that they can apply to their business?
I think perhaps just from a practical standpoint, there's several techniques on improving tire wear. Some of the newer techniques, both from a compounding and a design standpoint in there that people should be aware of and apply to their business. The report also discusses the implications of tire wear particles to the business. And I think this is something that is largely unappreciated by many. One of the approaches that we take is, since all tires wear, can we make the wear particles safer? And what I mean by that is the chemicals of concern in tire wear particles, can those be changed? And a big example of that is 6-PPD, which is being investigated right now by the state of California. USTMA is very active in working with the regulators to try to get a handle on an approach. And they filed a 200 plus page document of alternative analysis. And that's going to be a multi-year process, which they're going into stage 2 of that. There's going to be a lot of work done there, but the industry is helping to shape that. But 6-PPD, if we can substitute that, that would take a lot of pressure off of the immediate pressure off of tire wear particles. And I'm going to use an abbreviation here, TRWP, tire road wear particles. And when we think about tire particles, our initial thought is what comes off the tire, but the tire road wear particles is roughly about 50% road and 50% tire. And so those are the particles that are out there. And that's what we really need to be thinking about when we think about tire wear particles.
So, with pending legislation, what are the particular struggles that the industry is facing today and over the next 10 years?
Well, the big problem right now is 6-PPD. Again, it's a data gap, but I feel, and I think many feel, that most of the 6-PPD that's causing the problems with the coho salmon are being leached from tire wear particles. Many people have not connected tire wear particles and 6-PPD, but they are intimately connected. Those two go together, and that understanding is something that will be emphasized in the report and something that everybody needs to be aware of. Uh, the uh, the idea that we have electric vehicles which are wearing a lot faster. I read one report, and again, this was in a popular publication. One owner of electric vehicles said he only got 8,000 miles on his tires. And most people will say, well, that's probably pretty extreme, but you can expect that the wear on the electric vehicles is much more substantial, and so it's going to be a bigger problem. The other thing which doesn't get a lot of attention, but and it's not a big market share, is studded tires. Studded tires have a tremendous impact on tire wear particles. The number of tire wear particles from studded tires is tremendous compared to conventional tires. So those are three areas that I think that the industry is going to have to deal with.
Are there any regional dynamics that come to mind when you talk about industry struggles? Is there anything unique to certain regions or legislation that's different in one region than the other?
Well, and for tire wear particles, Europe is really going to be the first one to regulate Euro 7, and that's been proposed. It hasn't been implemented yet, but it will be coming out very shortly. That is regulating the amount of tire wear coming off of each tire. And I think that's a good place to start. And I'll just mention this, but I think the industry needs to shape that legislation. It's not just the amount of tire wear particles, it's the size of the tire wear particles, it's the composition, it's the location of the tire wear particles. Where are they relative to the likelihood of uh, the chemicals being leached out and contaminating water? There's a lot of issues associated with it, and I think it's very important for the industry to have a big voice in that, because I think we want more on these regulations than simply just the total amount of wear that a tire exhibits during its lifetime.
So that would be one of the main solutions that would address these tire wear issues. Are there some other solutions that tire companies are looking at right now and then down the road?
Yes, as we look at it, the effort for better wear is ongoing. And I was reading an article, and this has maybe been a year or so ago, that one of the major companies, 50% of their compounding work was dedicated to tires for EV. So that's taken a big chunk of R&D, and that's along with, when we think about what the industry is facing, we're facing Industry 4.0, facing smart tires, we're facing sustainability, which this is a very important part of. The industry faces a number of problems, and so one of the problems is the number of problems that we're facing. How do we address this particular problem without losing all the other balls that we have up in the air?
Okay, so this area of tire wear regulations, you talked about compounding. So, and you talked about sustainability. So, do you think those are the main growth areas in the tire industry based on these issues, these tire wear issues?
I think, the idea of EVs, and there's been a lot of discussion recently on EVs. People saying that, well, we're going to be going more to the hybrids, and I think in the short term that's probably true, but in the very long term, and again, this may be more than 10 years, I think there'll be more of a switch to the complete EVs from hybrids. Although right now you have to concede that the hybrids are impacting the EV market share. But I think that's a big area for the tire industry to growth, the EVs. And the fact is that we simply must address the wear issue there. It simply has to be addressed from multiple standpoints. Customer expectations. From what I've read, it's very clear that the industry is not really meeting the customer expectations as far as just wear, regardless of the tire wear particles, but just the cost benefit to the consumer needs to be addressed here.
So there's some legislation in Europe about recycled content in automobiles coming up. Do you see that influencing tires as well? And does that play into the wear issue at all?
The problem you have is in the tire industry we've been trying to use, well, we use rework all the time in the plants. It's a very important part, maybe anywhere from 10 to some people may use as much as 50% rework. And we try to incorporate ground tire rubber, and you can put 1 or 2% in. Some companies say you can go higher. But typically what happens when you start using that kind of material, you run into wear issues. Now, as far as for example, recycled polyester bottles, that's a very important part of things, and you can make polyester just as good as the virgin material. So there's no problem with that kind of recycling. The idea of recovered carbon black, very important part. And again, we just came out with a report, Smithers did, dealing with recovered carbon black and some of the issues associated with that, some of the opportunities associated with that product. But I see more recycled material going in, but we can't compromise performance. And again, meeting that challenge is going to be a challenge. Tire pyrolysis, getting the not only the recovered carbon black, but also process oils. Again, we have to be careful that we're making good environmental sense. And I don't know if we've done a complete, I'm sure somebody's done an LCA on something like that, but we need to be sure that we are actually environmentally positive on these recycling efforts. And I think more use of LCAs is going to become more and more important as the industry goes forward.
That concludes our discussion with Howard Colvin, the author of the Smithers produced market report, The Impact of Tire Wear Regulations to 2034. The report will be available in September. For more information, visit smithers.com.